I'm taking the team total. I'm taking first quarter, first half, full game, taking it all. OU all the way. I lost so much money on OU.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free.
Can't start to all crazy. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
What is up, and welcome to Not Another CFB Pod. We are brought to you by the Coda Sports Gambling Network. We're here to talk about Week 4 college football, Week 3 NFL. This is the review show, weekend review. I think we both had some wild weekends. First off, Beast, we got to talk about our picks, man. Our picks are looking pretty good.
Yeah, boys got hot. I got to say, I felt like that was a good showing
said.
from us, man.
Yeah, it has to be said. I mean, both of us, really you though. I mean, but that's at this point, the people on YouTube can see I've got the go off Beast sign above my head. This guy for weeks now has been all over it, being sharp with it, like not just strictly fading the public as a strategy, but doing that in the right spots. It's really paid off for you, I think.
Yeah, it's been tough because, when you get hot, I feel like you want to throw a play on everything because you're just like heat check, but I've kind of had to try to stay to it. I want to say in total, I only had 5 NFL bets last week. And then, I added this Monday night game on Daniel Jones over passing attempts, but I wanted to bet like so many more games, but I was like, nope, stick to kind of like your guns. Don't overstep it. Just consistent. And it's worked. So we're going to try to, keep complacent and we'll be all right, man.
That's the mature way to do it, man. I know I've had some streaks like that you've been on, and you're right. That's what the first thing you want to do is like especially every like primetime game that people are going to be watching. But I think you did good. I think you're playing it just right. We do have to talk about some games from this weekend because unfortunately both our college teams took an L. OU going down to Kansas State 41-34. I guess I'll get into that one first. I was actually there. I was at the game, had great seats. Shout out to Tattoo Baker. He hooked it up again. He hooked me up with tickets last year. I went to the Iowa State game, which was a great game. We won. There were some good moments in this one for the Sooners for sure, but defensively, man, they were a little bit lost. I thought mostly, I'll kind of get into my takes. I thought it was really the linebacking core for OU the defensive line did nothing really against this Kansas State offensive line. So they didn't help the linebackers by any means, but I felt like the linebackers just couldn't make a tackle, just kind of overrunning guys. And then again, like I said, the Kansas State offensive line just dominated this defensive line, which was extremely disappointing. I think both of us said that this OU team could be a playoff type team. And then that comes out. Kansas State happens. Adrian Martinez goes for 5 total touchdowns. He almost had 400 yards of offense just himself. That can't happen. He's not good enough. And it was sad for us because I think we thought the defense had stuff figured out. And then that was the game that made it look like, oh, this is the old OU still. Like they can still score a little bit. The offense isn't what it was, I'll say, especially this game. But this defense, this is the old OU again. They can't tackle. They don't get a bunch of penetration, anything like that. I don't know. I think they just got socked in the mouth. I mean, we looked up in the stadium and it was 14-zip like that. I know K-State, they actually elected to receive the ball, which I, at the time, thought, okay, great. Like, that means we get the ball in the second half. But what they did was they just set the tone for the whole game with that first drive, then the second drive. And from there, it was just we were on our heels. And that's the textbook way to do it. The frustrating thing as an OU fan is I think Kansas State has beaten OU 3 of the last 4 years. That can't have. It's Kansas State. Like they're not that good. They're a good, well-coached team, but they can't be just beating you all the time. So it's frustrating. Tired of seeing the purple, man. We're just tired of the Power Cats coming to town and kicking our butts, especially at home, man. They have our number in Norman. I don't know. I know you've probably got some thoughts on this game too.
Yeah, watching it at home, that was one of those ones where, just like you said, I thought this OU team was, much better, defensive this year. And I even told Kyle earlier in the week, I said, I think this game goes under. I think this is a defensive battle kind of thing. I thought they'd be able to hold down Martinez, but Martinez probably had one of his best games of his career. I mean, this might be like his signature moment when you consider the spot, going on the road and everything. But it was one of those things where, we only can judge a game off like what we've seen a couple weeks in. And I thought OU was really, really good, but clearly Kansas State just showed up a little bit more prepared, unfortunately. And it's any given Saturday we see these upsets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be anybody.
At the end of the day, I mean, I was over it pretty quick. I mean, I think I told you that I thought maybe this OU team could get there to the playoff and maybe even win a game in the playoff, but I didn't think they were a national title team. So at the end of the day, I'm not that sad, but I do want to hear a little bit from you about Michigan State, the Spartans this weekend. They go down pretty big to the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. I was on Minnesota, but I tried to tell people it wasn't because I thought Michigan State's really, really bad or anything like that. I just like the role that this is one of those weird lines that Vegas sets out. I talked about on the pod. It was -3 for Minnesota on the road. Weird looking line. And I went with it, and I guess it was the right side, but I know you watched a lot more of that game than I did because I was at the OU game. But you want to talk about that game a little bit?
Well, it was funny because I watched, 2 weeks ago when they played Washington. I was dropping a lot of F-bombs and, this and that. But It was almost like I entered last week as like, I had no expectation of like, is this team good? Is this team bad? And then I was sitting there in silence pretty much watching Michigan State just get it shoved down their throat. I mean, and that's, it sucked because it was like, I'm not even upset because I knew this was a potential. Against Washington, I think I was a little bit more optimistic, but I had to sit there kind of in silence. And I'm like, man, this is not good. There's some major problems. I think there needs to be some, big changes on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we kind of said that last year. I mean, when you have the worst passing defense in the country, and that's like of all college FBS teams, that's a problem. But then to come out this year, and it seems like they haven't figured out anything on defense. I think it's pretty blatant to everybody that like changes will be made as far as defensive coordinator, even if maybe change the scheme. I don't know what you need to do. But on the other hand, I'm not like out on Mel Tucker. The unfortunate thing is that 2 tough losses, and people just forget that like Mel Tucker came in and like 2020 COVID year. He was literally doing like walkthroughs on like Zoom and doing like all this, you know what I mean? Like,
the Big Ten rules too, they were way stricter. So that was even harder.
So like he was recruiting with like very limited stuff. In his second season, he won 11 games last year and people were like applauding him. Obviously, he got this massive contract. You don't get that if you didn't do good. And then he has 2 tough losses to start this year. And people are like, no, he's a fraud. We should fire him. And I'm like, whoa. Let's not, you got like, you're stuck with him. You have,
I was going to say
10-year contract.
Yeah. He just signed that deal. You got to ride this one out. But I know exactly what you mean, man. Cause we had OU fans. This is our first loss. And we had OU fans talking about this is a fraudulent deal. Same team, blah, blah, blah. Everyone wants to bench Gabriel. I'm like,
of course.
Dylan Gabriel for OU had 330 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, and another 61 on the ground. Like if he almost had 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like he did definitely miss some guys though. I mean, there were moments everybody could have done a little bit better. So I know exactly what you mean, but honestly, that's kind of just part of being a college football fan. There's just the insane overreactions. It's something you don't see near as much in the NFL because there's so fewer games and one loss isn't that big of a thing. It's like, all right, we can still make playoffs or whatever, we're fine. But with one loss, at the college level, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely every game means like way, way, way more in my opinion.
I love it. Yeah, and we got to get into this college football slate this weekend. Coastal Carolina picked up a big win on Thursday of last week. West Virginia, big win for them too, 33-10 over Virginia Tech. But I wanted to get into, I think Air Force might be back. I mean, I know they just played Nevada on Friday night, but they won 48-20, and it really wasn't that close. I saw someone was on Air Force. I don't know if it was you or someone else at the network, but I ended up tailing it because I had heard the week before the reason Air Force played so bad is because they were all sick. So maybe that rumor was true, but a great one that went down Friday night was Virginia and Syracuse, man.
Yeah, no, that was a fun one. I think we've talked a lot about, how Virginia is underplayed all year. And, I was really frustrated with Armstrong a couple weeks ago when I had him as like a money line dog, but they showed up, you know what I mean? Yep. And they played real close with Syracuse. That Syracuse team, I'm pretty impressed by them. They got the job done,
Yeah, there you go. And then on Saturday, we had a couple of interesting results, man. Some big upsets. Obviously, we've talked about one of them already, but Georgia, Kent State. Kent State kind of kept it close for a little bit. I think they even had the lead early in this one. They lose 39-22. So this Georgia offense is doing what they do. I'm not totally shocked. I think Bama might be back. They beat Vanderbilt 55-3. Specifically, that defense played a lot better. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm looking back at that one, kicking myself, because that was the most obvious spot to bet Bama in, man.
Oh yeah, because everybody I feel like wants to believe like Vanderbilt just because of a couple results.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, maybe this is their year. Like they can hang around and keep it. No, like Bama's just Bama. Like doesn't matter how good Vanderbilt is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Vanderbilt. But again, we should have had that one. Ohio State doing what they do, 52-21 at home over Wisconsin. I was on team total over here for the Buckeyes, and I'm glad I was because holy moly, man. They did it.
Yeah, they had like 31.5, right?
Yeah, at least. Like I mean, that is the exact number because I knew I needed one more touchdown. Yep. They had 31.5 against this isn't the same kind of Wisconsin team we've seen, but it's still not terrible. You know, I expect them to win some games later this year, and man, it was wild.
Yeah, I regretted not tailing you on that one because I kind of when you were explaining it, I'm like, yeah, Ohio State's they're gonna prove everybody wrong in this Wisconsin defense. So I liked it.
They just get people in space, and as we saw last week when they scored 11 touchdowns, CJ Stroud and these receivers have got it figured out. It looks like a team that might not have it figured out though, and I'm excited to talk about this one because you're an MSU fan. Is Maryland and Michigan. Maryland 27, Michigan 34 in the Big House. And that was after Maryland on the opening kickoff. The receiver it bounces right off his face mask and goes right to a Michigan defender right on the 10-yard line. They score on the next play.
That was the craziest play I've ever seen. Like
to start a game.
Yeah, what a tough start to the day for Maryland trying to, upset Michigan. But I felt like Maryland played pretty good. I was pretty impressed by Taulia. I mean, we knew he had it capable, but dude, there was one point where he had like a run and his helmet popped off and you could see him getting in the Michigan defense's face. I'm like, dude, he lives for these moments. Maybe he's not as good as Tua was in college, but he's got the same like strike. He gets after it, man, and he's got that fire in him just like Tua did at times. So I thought it was an impressive effort from Maryland. I don't know if Michigan's as good as we probably.
Michigan's out of conference schedule was just so weak. I mean, they played Hawaii. They played just these teams that just have no hope this season. And so I guess we can't be totally surprised just because that's what happens when you don't really play any true warm-up challenge type games.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, they were playing UConn, Hawaii, and Colorado State, if anybody's watched Colorado State in like the past 2 weeks, they look like one of the worst teams in college football right now. I mean, that offense is just not clicking like I think I expected them to.
Yeah.
So maybe Michigan wasn't ready. We'll see if maybe they pick it up in the next few weeks. But like my brother was watching the game with me, and my brother's a big Michigan fan, and he's like, dude, I don't know if JJ McCarthy's the guy. I'm like, man, that's funny because 2 weeks ago you guys thought he was the best quarterback in the nation.
Yeah.
So we'll see, man.
I was saying that too. I thought they found their guy, but maybe not. We should talk about Clemson and Wake Forest, this ACC just showdown. Wake had a lot of chances to close this one out against Clemson, but Clemson ends up winning in double overtime, 51-45. I don't know what to think. I think Clemson's defense, isn't as good as it has been, and that may be their downfall because we talked about this off air, but the ACC seems wide open right now, man.
Right. I mean, Hartman played as good of a game as I've seen him play. I felt like some of those touchdowns I saw him throwing, I was like, man, he's putting the ball perfect on these receivers. So it was kind of unfortunate to see Wake go down just because I was like, man, Hartman played his tail off and he just didn't get the result. But that Wake defense just, they had some issues. And it's unfortunate when you go to overtime and you can't pull it out because the game feels like a 50-50 once you go to overtime.
Yeah.
It's like a coin toss in a way,
Yeah.
So
yeah, came up just short, just a few plays short. I want to get into the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Texas A&M Aggies, though. That was a neutral site game, but I know you had to play on it. You had a big take about a hog feast, and it was a close game at least. A&M coming away with a 2-point win, so that's right on that 1.5 that we were talking about.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure I had a couple, Razorback fans that probably wanted to DM me, death threats before, after seeing my antics last week describing, my play for that game. But I mean, I told PG before the show, I said I got lucky because it was as much of a 1.5 point spread as you're going to get because it went right down to 2. There was a missed field goal. I mean, I was sweating that end of that game out. So I was glad it went my way, obviously. But was it a hog feast? Maybe not. Maybe just like, one rib on the grill kind of thing.
It was a strip of bacon.
Yeah,
Just a
strip of
couple
bacon.
strips of bacon.
That's it. That's it. But hey, we got the win. So we're working, man. We'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're hot, you're hot. And like we said, go off beast. A game that I went off for, I'm sorry for the cheesy segues, but we were at the tailgate for this one. Texas loses to Texas Tech in Lubbock, 37-34. We went crazy. So Texas Tech hits a field goal that looks like it's going to end the game, and it doesn't. Texas gets right back down the field quick as they can. I mean, there was like 20 seconds left, and they got all the way down the field, kick a field goal. It was a great make. Goes to OT, but Texas Tech pulls it out in overtime after a timely turnover from B. John Robinson, which was surprising. Sorry, I'm going to cut that. But a huge win for Texas Tech, a huge win for this program. I mean, I liked what I saw from them today. And obviously, our tailgate was just losing their minds when Texas lost. It was great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if nothing else, if OU didn't get the W, at least Texas went down with them. You know what I mean? So it wasn't a complete loss, but you're
Silver
right.
lining.
Yeah, you're right. It was crazy to see Bijan fumble because that's just something he doesn't do. Like, he's one of those big-time players. Everybody's talking, first round for him next year. So you don't see that kind of stuff out of a guy like that. But, hey, Texas Tech will take it, man. Good win for them.
Yeah, and I knew he took it hard. Like, I saw today that he was carrying his ball around the school, a football in his arm, doing kind of the old school. I think that was Friday Night Lights thing where you try not to fumble or whatever, just take the ball around school. So that was kind of old school, but I thought that was cool. Another ranked game that we need to break down that I almost forgot about because this was a good one. Florida and Tennessee. Tennessee wins in Neyland Stadium 38-33. A great win for the Vols, top 10 Vols. You got to like what you see from them this year.
Oh, yeah. Hendon Hooker had a great game. I mean, like classic Hendon Hooker.
We should mention that we had the double dip on this game. You had Tennessee team total over.
Yep.
I had Tennessee Florida over, and we both hit. I mean,
yeah, that was as good as it's gonna get.
It's just been great. I took your bet, so that was a 2 for 1 for me there, 2-0. I loved it, but that game really was good outside of our bets. I mean, it came down to the wire. Classic Hendon Hooker game. We saw a little bit better from the Florida offense rather than we thought we were. Anthony Richardson made some plays. I believe he got his first passing touchdown.
Yeah, I think so.
Huge. I still can't believe that stat. That's so wild. He had like 3 tackles and 0 touchdowns, and he's a quarterback.
Yeah, for as good as he's been this year, it's crazy that he didn't have that first passing touchdown. But I thought it was a good matchup as far as, like you said, I felt like Florida played better than I expected. I knew that like Tennessee would put up points, but I was so nervous about Florida, their offense. That's why I didn't want to take the full team, or the full game over, but it worked out because we both double dipped. So
double dipped, and that's been hot this year. So if you guys hear us double dip on a game, you just take them both because so far it's been really good to us. Another this isn't a ranked matchup, but it was kind of close. Is Baylor Iowa State? Baylor beating Iowa State in Ames, Iowa, 31-24. It's a big win for Baylor. I feel like because they kind of needed. I feel like they needed a win to kind of just prove to themselves that they're still those dudes after that BYU loss. BYU's dropped a game or two here, but a good win for Baylor.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was talking up Baylor earlier in the year. I said, they could win the Big 12, this and that. I mean,
they're right there.
Were they my pick for the Big 12? Probably not, but I felt like they had a shot. You know what? Maybe they go on a run. That you need a game like this where you kind of get a little bit of momentum going. Who knows, man? With how OU just lost last week.
Yeah,
I don't know. Texas just went down. Like, there's a lot open. So
Big 12 is literally the Wild West. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, especially with OU going down. But typically, man, OU when they lose that early game, at least in the past, it has really rallied them, and then they've kind of become that team that you thought they were. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. But another Big 12 result we got to talk about is Kansas going 4-0, beating Duke at home, 35-27. This was actually a sneaky good game. Kansas got out to a little bit of a lead. Duke made some plays on the way back. 2 classic basketball blue bloods, and it was a good one. Getting us ready for basketball season, kind of.
Yeah, I saw Dickie V tweeting about it, and I'm like, oh man, it's like a college basketball game if you got Dickie V. But no, I mean, that was a fun game to watch. I felt like Kansas, who knows, man? We'll see how they can, like, how
4-0.
far they can go. I mean, maybe they can keep it going and they kind of keep shocking people. But that's another fun team in the Big 12 that might be able to upset a team or two,
Yeah, and here's the thing: they're 4-0. They're in first place right now, so they
Right,
control their own destiny. What a crazy world we live in! In fact, I actually had them ranked number 24 in my PG's top 25 poll today, or Monday as of recording this.
Hey, you got to give them a little respect, man.
I
This
believe
kid
in the
Jalen
Jayhawks.
Daniels, like I like
quarterback.
Daniels a lot, dude.
He can really play. I can guarantee you that Beast and I have been keeping our eye on them. We're going to find the right time to pounce on the Kansas Jayhawks, and we're going to definitely bet them. Let's see what else happened. I liked, and I thought we should mention that Notre Dame beat UNC 45-32. This was a great showing for UNC's offense, but man, this UNC defense is just so, like, I almost wanted to say up and down, but like almost consistently down, actually. So not up and down at all. I don't know what they're doing.
No, I am kind of high on UNC and the offensive department. We've been all year. Obviously, we've talked up our guy Drake May, but defensively, it's a mess, dude. And I'm not really sure what the fix is, but they're not going to win the ACC. And like, if they had a defense, you'd think that they would actually compete for it.
They have the offense to win the ACC. They do not have the defense to do it. They do not. I wanted to talk about this game, and this is kind of a sicko game, but I have to mention it. Our guy Randy Vision, he's a big Missouri Tigers guy. Missouri Tigers taking on Auburn this weekend, and they got the worst beating ever. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm going to try to recap it the best I can. So Missouri and Auburn are tied up. This is in Auburn. Missouri has a 23-yard field goal to win the game in regulation. They miss it. Then it goes to overtime. They force a field goal from Auburn. So now they're down 3. A field goal would tie it. A touchdown obviously wins them the game. They get a huge run up the sideline. It's going to be first and goal from like the 1-inch line, but instead the dude tries to reach out the ball over the goal line, and he fumbles the ball into the end zone, and an Auburn player kind of recovers it, kind of goes out of bounds, but it doesn't matter. It's a touchback. Auburn wins the game. Disgusting for the Missouri Tigers. I feel so bad for their fans. They wanted this one bad, I think, and they should have won it. It's just gross.
And it's probably a little unfortunate for the Auburn fans in a certain sense because this is a win now, and like
the loss probably gets Harsin out of there right now.
Yeah, they want Harsin out, and it's like any win right now is not helping. Like that should have been a loss, like you said, and any loss would help that cause. So they're probably like, really, like we don't need any more wins. The season's gone. Like,
I know, man. I feel like I genuinely feel bad for them. I mean, what are you going to do? That poor team, ever since, the first 2 years, I think it was the first 2 years they were in the SEC, they went to the AFC East. They were the AFC East representative in the SEC championship game. And since then, it's just kind of been a steady, just down. I don't know where they're going. But I hope it works out because like they're not far from here. I've kind of heard that potentially OU and Missouri might play every year in the new SEC. So like, I kind of want them to be decent just so that's a fun game or whatever, at least a big one that makes you a little nervous. It's fun. Before we move on to the NFL, I almost forgot this last one on my list, and you can add one after this if you want, but USC at Oregon State. We talked this one up. I almost took the over. This game, USC wins 17-14, and it was 7-3 at halftime. It was 7-3 going into the fourth quarter. Then USC scores 14 in the second half in the fourth quarter, and then Oregon State scores 7 in the fourth quarter. So, like, I don't know, man. I feel bad, but that again, a lot of people were on Oregon State. I guess that was pretty easy. They did a great job on defense. They frustrated Caleb Williams and this offense all night. The over/under was 71, and it hits 31, so it doesn't even get halfway there. Insane.
Yeah, we talked about that game being like, oh, this is going to be a high-scoring game, cold one classic. I mean, if you're
it was a cold one classic.
Yeah, like if you're a defensive guy, I'm sure it was like, oh, yeah, like, I mean, there was plenty of time to go to the fridge and get some beers because there was no scoring in that game. But, no, I felt like everybody on Oregon State +6, +6.5, whatever you had it at. Yeah, they were right, and we kind of said it was a sharp play, but neither one of us I think took
We
it.
didn't
We are
want to
just
take
like,
the bait.
yeah, we are just like, we'll lean it. We had other plays we liked, but
I know for me, USC's already cost me some money. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Or betting against them, I should say, because I think I had Fresno State, and they moved the
mhm,
ball, but they never scored. And so it's
yeah,
the same thing. I still kind of think this USC defense, they're figuring something out. I mean, at least they didn't give up a bunch of points. Not that Oregon State's a good offensive team, like a pretty darn good offensive team, but they're not like, they're not a USC on offense or something like
right,
that. So,
right,
but it's, that's a good result.
yeah.
Uh,
No, I agree.
if you have any other games, we can chat it up, or we can move on to the NFL if you're ready.
We can go on to NFL. Yeah, the only game I really had on my mind was that Oregon State USC. So we can move on, man.
All right. All right, before we move on, I want to talk about the BetCoda Sportsbook. BetCoda Sportsbook is a South Dakota owned and operated sportsbook located in the Midnight Star Casino in Deadwood, South Dakota, serving customers in the state. As you enter the Midnight Star, you are swept into the past with the grand staircase, stunning woodwork, and the elegance of the chandelier. They offer the best lines in Deadwood, so stop by and mention the Coda Sports Gambling Network to receive a free BetCoda t-shirt. Play responsibly, must be 21 years or older to wager. Gambling problems or concerns? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right, perfect. Good. So Thursday night we had Pittsburgh beating Cleveland 29, or Cleveland beating
Cleveland, yeah.
Pittsburgh, that is. But it was in Cleveland. So 29-17, good win for them. That was going on. I think we may have even mentioned that last time we recorded, but I want to talk about Sunday. We had some good ones, man. A lot more like closer games, still a lot of unders though. Like, I don't know if that's your general thought on the NFL. Lots of unders still.
Yeah, it feels like the games I'm expecting to go over. Like, I thought Colts and Chiefs. I was just like, that Chiefs offense, they're so good. Patrick Mahomes, you
We can
name off
talk
all these
we can
players.
we can talk about that one right off the jump. Yeah. So
Oh
the
yeah, that was
Colts,
probably one of the biggest results for
yeah,
sure.
biggest results. Colts beat the Chiefs 20-17 in Indianapolis. The roof was open. I guess it made all the difference. Some weird kind of costly turnovers and penalties for the Chiefs, kind of undisciplined stuff. I think I saw Chris Jones get an unsportsmanlike on the old man at quarterback there, Matt Ryan, and just some, yeah, like boneheaded things that normally Kansas City doesn't do. They were just a little sloppy today, but only 20-17. I would have expected a higher scoring affair than that.
Yeah, I want to say I'm looking at right now, and it was 51.5 was the total, which is kind
Wow.
of high for the NFL.
Yeah,
So
that's a
to
that's a
have
high total.
only 37 points scored, that's way way under. And that's the typical Colts game. If they can beat you like that, they love those
Yeah.
grinded out defensive games. So they played to their strength. I got to give them credit. That's a win that you pick up. Now suddenly the Colts are kind of back on track after going 0-2 to start the year.
Yeah, for sure. That was a good result. Another one, and this kind of goes into what you were talking about. This is our Lions. They go down 24-28 to the Vikings. I just expected this to be a lot more high scoring, and both teams move the ball fairly well. But a couple turnovers here and a couple turnovers there. Neither quarterback was bad, but they were also not like insanely good. In fact, Goff goes 25 for 41. Cousins goes 24 for 41. So not the greatest completion percentages, but still a lot of points, I guess, for like a quote unquote defensive game, a game that kind of turned defensive. I pushed my over. I think I gave out 52, over 52 in that one. And that's exactly where it landed.
Yeah, and we thought all year we've said, "Oh, Lions overs is kind of the move." But you're right. For a long time, it was kind of low scoring, and it took that late Vikings touchdown to hit
Mm-hmm.
that. As far
Mm-hmm.
as yeah, it was a tough game. I got a lot. I can't lie. As a Lions fan, it felt like we had that one. You got to close out the game. This is a young team. We're one of the youngest in the NFL. And Dan Campbell's only in his second year. All I got to say is, Campbell's got to be able to figure out a way to close out games. And it felt like maybe taking a 50-plus yard field goal with a guy that's, I want to say he's like 2 of 6 on like 50-yard field goals, like the last 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best move, but we got to figure out ways to win it. You can't let games like that slip when you're a team like Detroit. They were 6.5-point dogs in that game. You got to take it when you have it. It was right in front of you, so it's unfortunate.
I wanted that one bad for our boys, but they go down in a good one. Houston got their first win against Chicago. Chicago's an absolute mess. I know our guy Big Cat's been talking about it, but I don't know what do we think about Justin Fields at this point? Because I think I saw that he has
Chicago. Yeah, Chicago won that one. They pulled it off 23-20.
You're right. I'm sorry. I had Houston to cover that number, and they did cover
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're right.
I
So
hear you.
so the Bears are 2-1, and
Yep.
so that's why fans are a little bit conflicted because it's like in the NFL you just want to win.
Yep.
I covered in this one, and so I guess that was the last thing that I had in my head is that since we covered, we must have won. Kind of these scores are kind of backwards on ESPN's website, but anyway, yeah, still a good win, but again, frustrating because I think Justin Fields only has like legit 23 completions through 3 games so far.
Oh, no, 100%. I felt
Or
like
is it pass
Houston.
attempts? I think
What's
it
that?
must be complete. It's either completions or pass attempts, but it must be completions, right?
Yeah, he hasn't been 100%, I'll say that. And when you
Yeah.
look at a guy like Davis Mills, there's the comparisons that people were making,
Yeah.
entering last week. They were like, "Is Davis Mills better?" I'm like, I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
there yet, but I felt like the Texans played good. I thought they had opportunities to win that game. I was on Texans as well, and I was like,
I
"Dang,
think
I
I got it
thought."
from you, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that they had probably opportunities to win that game, and they just didn't pull it off. But you know what? It is what it is. We didn't lose the bet. I want to say we pushed it +3. So
Well, so here's what I did basically, folks, is I basically took almost all of Beast's picks and put them like in a teaser, and like I think I added one thing
mhm,
of my own, and that hit. So that was a big hit, and that's how I ended up in the green on Saturday. So
you
yeah,
go.
that was one of them. So I didn't push, I actually hit.
Okay,
So that feels a little bad. But yeah, I think you had +3, so I would have had +9. So I
right.
covered pretty. It's probably why I thought they won straight up because it was never that much of a sweat.
No,
I want to talk to so the Baltimore beats New England 37-26. Mac Jones gets banged up. Now it looks like maybe he may have to get surgery. It looked like it might just be a high ankle sprain. But man, I know New England fans are kind of going through it because they haven't been like sort of like hopeless in a long time. Now it's like backup quarterback mode. What's the story with our quarterback? They're being super cryptic with everything, and he looked like he was in a ton of pain. I know you saw that picture that was going around the internet of him like looking like he's crying. I feel bad
I
because
felt really
imagine there's
bad.
a camera in your face because he's just memed as hell on the internet, and people are making fun of him because right now it's listed as a high ankle sprain, and like most everyone's had like an ankle sprain of some kind. But at the
Yeah.
same time, like, there might be more to it than this too. Like he's just getting killed on the internet.
Well, and I felt bad too because the tough thing is like when you're an NFL quarterback and you suffer an injury. I mean, you could be any position in the NFL. You suffer an injury like that, like not only are you going through that pain, and you might have a little adrenaline going, but you're also going through like the mental pain of just like, dude, we had our season out ahead of us. It's literally week 3. Am I about to go down for the year? Like all those
Yeah,
thoughts are going through your head. So like not only was he probably like in physical pain, he was probably in a little bit of like mental
a
pain.
lot
I
of
kind of feel
emotions
bad.
going on.
Yeah. So like him leaving the stadium and being like upset, people are like giving him shit for that. I'm like, what do you expect, dude?
Yeah.
Like,
Plus,
so
it's a brutal thing, and I've never really talked about this, but there are some NFL stadiums that are this way, but to get into the tunnels to like where they take their players and stuff, they actually go downstairs and then in. Instead of
right.
like being a ramp or whatever, like most teams do, where they just go up the little hill and like a golf
Hmm.
cart, he had to be like physically like carried down the
Right.
stairs.
Right. Yeah. It
Like it
was
was like
not
the
good.
and your ankles bouncing around and like I don't know. It was all kinds of things. I feel kind of bad for our New England friends because we got a lot of New England friends, but we got to talk about Cincinnati Bengals getting their first win over the New York Jets. 27-12. But what I wanted to talk about is I don't know if you saw it, but Quinnen Williams, kind of their high draft pick on the defensive line, about fought the coach. Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah, he
Gets
was
up
in
in his
his
face.
defensive line coach. I don't know what the guy's name is, but
Big
Quentin
boy.
Williams
They're
was
both big
not
boys.
happy. I mean, they were like chest to chest, looking like they were about to swing. Quentin Williams like, you don't talk to me like that. So I don't know if that's a sign of things to come, with that defense. But sometimes tensions are high. These NFL
Yeah.
guys they could bounce back. But you're right, it made for a very very interesting video clip. You know what I mean?
That's kind of why I wanted to bring it up just because of the clip. And one that we forgot too was Kansas City was really frustrated at the half. I think it
Yeah.
was at the half. And Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, gets into it with Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback. Who knows over what, but Beast is right. This is something that happens a lot in the NFL. These guys feel like they know, both guys feel like they know better. Like, I'm a player, but I'm also a pro, so I know how this should go. And then the coach says, well, you're still a player. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
It happens, but
Yeah,
that was a good clip too. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah, I saw it, and I think what I heard, I want to say it was like Red Zone was explaining it. I think what had happened, I could be wrong on this, but I believe what had happened was there was like maybe 20 or 30 seconds left in that first half, and Mahomes wanted to go for it, like let's
Oh,
push for a field goal kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
The enemy's like, nah, man, like we're gonna run it. So they did, they ran it, and they just let the clock run out after that run, and they,
There's a little frustrations over
yeah,
that. I could see that.
I think he was like, why aren't you letting me try for it? Bieniemy's
Yeah.
like, dude, like all it takes is a fumble or a pick, and then
That's huge. And
like,
and that had already happened to him. They had a muff punt earlier that game. And so yeah, I get it. But I will say that Mahomes there's no one I'd rather have the ball.
right,
Maybe Josh Allen, but probably just Pat Mahomes with like 30 seconds. He didn't even probably need a timeout. This guy just
yeah,
zings. That's like because that's basically what Texas Tech did all the time. So like he's just used to just going
yeah,
balls to the wall, taking shots, going down the field,
yeah.
deep routes,
Not many
buying
quarterbacks would
time.
feel that confident with 30 seconds. I'll say
Right.
that,
He's the guy. Philadelphia, they're very good at football. I've said that before. 24-8, they beat the Commanders. There's a ton of Philadelphia fans in there. They're hyped about their team. It's early in the season is all I want to say. A game that we definitely need to talk about, though, is Buffalo and Miami, because Miami upsets Buffalo 21-19, but this was a dang good game, man. I know Buffalo had a ton of guys out. I'm not losing faith in Buffalo at all, but every week I feel like I get on here and talk about how legit the Dolphins are. I don't know, man.
We kind of said week one, we were like, oh yeah, they're really speedy, they're really fast.
Yeah, they're certainly
but that
fast.
defense showed up, dude. Like I was impressed. We'll see what we get out of Miami, this year. But suddenly they're a contender for that division. If they can put up with Buffalo, you could put up with anybody.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. I think I've saw that Buffalo. So I just said I'm not like panicking about the Buffalo Bills, but maybe I am, because I saw that they're 0-6 in their last last 6 one-score games. That's tough. But we know how many of these games they win by double digits. So it's almost a thing where like they just don't expect to play in these close games. And then when they happen, it's like, oh shoot, this is kind of foreign territory before. I think they'll get that ironed out. At least this happened early in the year, and now they can kind of get some motivation back and keep doing what they do. The Jags, though, the pesky Jags beat the Los Angeles Chargers, who I think I've called them a fraud. I think they're fraudulent, but the Jags beat them in LA 38-10.
Just ridiculous. I feel like I think I texted you guys. I said, "Is Trevor Lawrence here? Like, is this Trevor Lawrence's coming out party?
And I think I think I replied that he's him." Or something like that.
Oh yeah, dude.
That's the new thing.
I mean, this is what we all expected out of Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. He was this generational quarterback prospect. I think the last quarterback I could think of that was like as highly, touted as him was maybe Andrew Luck. So, and once again, Andrew Luck came on a little bit quicker, but when Andrew Luck got it going, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence looks awesome. This Jags defense obviously was shutting down Herbert. I know Herbert kind of has the stuff going on with his ribs.
Yeah.
He didn't look 100%.
He's not 100%. Yeah.
But to put up 38, I thought the Chargers defense was a pretty solid defense. So they look
above
good,
average,
man.
at least. But
yeah,
pesky Jags. We'll remember that one. We'll come back to them. Let's see. We had a close one, Atlanta and Seattle. Very ugly sicko game, but a high scoring one randomly. Well, 27-23. Atlanta. I mean, I feel like they started to use Pitts. He had 87 receiving yards.
Yeah.
Started to use him a little, and they found a way to win the game. I know you had that one too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in Atlanta. Yeah, I put that one in early in the week because I was looking at it, and all week Atlanta was a dog. Even like by the time game time happened, I thought the line would flip and Atlanta would be favored. I think the most we got to was like the money line being -110. But yeah, so I just felt like so I was like, you know what? At this point, I think Seattle stinks. They played all right. I'm not going to say they played bad, but I just was looking at Mariota and I'm like, he's a better quarterback. This is a better team in Atlanta, and they showed up and they did it, in Seattle. So that's what we kind of thought would happen. So
we got to talk about another sicko game that went down. Before we get into Green Bay and Tampa Bay, I want to talk Sunday Night Football, San Francisco, Denver. 11-10, Denver wins. Man, I wish I didn't have to watch that game. That hurt my soul.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was one of those games where, I had a bet on it so you had to watch it. You know what I mean? And especially
Absolutely.
with how close it was, it never felt because I had San
It's never
Francisco.
out. Yeah, anything could have happened even down to the last possession.
Right. So I was like, well, maybe Jimmy G will get something going. Just never happened. That was one of those tough losses. But the fact it was our only loss in the NFL. That was fine to have that one be it. But Game of
Yeah.
Thrones. I saw like the notification come up on my phone on like HBO for like House of Dragon, Game of Thrones. I
Yeah.
said maybe I should be watching that. I think that might be more
Oh, that would have
entertaining.
definitely been more entertaining.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, that was an ugly one, but it is what it is. I do want to talk about the battle of the bays, as I called it. Green
oh
Bay and
yeah.
Tampa Bay. I think the final score was 14-12. What did you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It was a battle of the bays. It was right down to the end. I felt like
Defensive battle though.
yeah, and I kind of didn't expect that. I thought Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers being like all week we talked about this being like the premier quarterback matchup. This might be the last time Rodgers and Brady play each other, barring a playoff matchup. And we were like, oh, this is going to be a gunslinger show. And it just wasn't, like they
Yep.
didn't play bad. It just the defenses showed up. I got to say that Packers defense, I think, is a lot
Especially in the
better.
red zone.
Oh,
That red
yeah.
zone defense, man. I mean, that's unreal
Yeah.
to do what they did. I mean, because I don't think the Bucks have a very bad offense. I mean, I think it's solid. Tom Brady, he always kind of takes some time to really get to that like playoff Tom Brady
Hmm.
level, but still he's not bad and they know the playbook. Now, we should mention that they were down a bunch of key receivers. Basically all their receivers were
Right.
out. But still, I mean, you expect Tom Brady and these guys to figure it out, find a way, but it was a good one. It was it was one of those ones though you had to you had to like defense to really appreciate that game, I feel like.
Yeah.
But hey, it was all right. It wasn't bad. There is another one going down, kind of a sicko game here on Monday night. I've got the Cowboys. It's now tied 6-6 in the third quarter as we're recording
Oh, my
this.
goodness.
So we'll see. It's a little bit of a stinker. The under is looking good though. Knock on wood. But yeah, is there any other games you wanted to mention in pro football before we get into one big take and then wrap it up?
No, we're good, man. I felt like we did a pretty good review there.
Yeah, it's a good review. So we'll get into one big take. This is just our big takeaway from the weekend. Can be really anything.
Of course. Yeah. No, I can lead us off, man. I'm going to start off with a take that it might come off as like, this isn't really that hot of a take, but it is a take because entering the year, everybody said Michigan was going to, compete and be able to maybe pull it off in the
Yeah.
Big Ten. But I just think my biggest take out of watching how last week went, Ohio State's going to run away with the Big Ten, and that goes for the Big Ten West. Nobody's touching them in the Big Ten West. Nobody's touching them in the Big Ten East. Ohio State's going to run away with it. I don't see anybody like even within like probably 10 points of them. Like, and you could put it up to anybody and right now in the Big Ten. And I think that they're a 10-point, 14-point favorite over anybody you give them. I think their toughest matchups, I'm looking at their schedule right now, they'll have to travel and they'll play at Penn State. They play Maryland. That's at Maryland, but that's not a tough game. They're going to blow out Maryland. Sorry. And then they get Michigan at home to end the season. And I got to be honest, based on what I'm seeing from Michigan, Michigan's defense is not what it was last year. Unless they clean some things up, they're not bringing the same pressure they had off the edge with Ojabo and Hutchinson last year. I don't think Michigan's as much of a threat to Ohio State in the Big Ten East as we once thought.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the Big Ten, and it's going to be Ohio State's. And like we probably we flirted with that idea to start the year, but there were so many like people that are like, well, Michigan's going to be good again. Nah, like I'm sorry, but it seems like it's Ohio State's to lose at this point, barring a big injury to Stroud. Nothing's changing to me. So
All right. I like it. And I'm with you. I mean, Michigan, you could almost throw the should have lost tag on there, but I mean, they did come away with it in the end, but I think they get exposed sooner or later. I mean, and like we've already mentioned, Ohio State's just a wagon. Their offense has figured it out. They're clicking. So I'm going to stick in college for my one big take. And my one big take is the Pac-12 is awesome again. You guys have got to watch the Pac-12. It's not necessarily the high flying, crazy offenses that we're used to seeing. They're going through this transition that a lot of conferences have gone through, namely the Big 12 recently. The defenses have really stepped it up, but you got to look at teams like Utah's got a good defense. USC so far has been really fortunate with turnovers that they're performing really well on defense. Oregon doesn't have the best defense, but they're a good team. We saw Washington, they can play some defense, and they're just a good team. They're just kind of loaded right now, and it's very open. College football in general is really open this year. I feel like, at least at the conference level, we'll probably have the same couple dogs that we're used to, in that college football playoff. But right now, it's wide open. I've been loving what I've seen for the Pac-12. They've got a bunch of good teams. I thought they were trash, wrote them off way too early. But like I said, I think I said this last episode, but they had so many transfers come in that I think it's converted a bunch of teams from bad to better. And Pac-12 has really been beneficiary of that. And there was a lot of starting spots for grabs, and they came and got them. So I've enjoyed the crap out of watching the big Pac-12, excuse me, but every conference has been pretty open. I was going to even start with, I think the SEC is more open than we thought too, because we saw Georgia look a little bit weaker this week, and we already saw Bama almost fall to. In fact, if Texas's starting quarterback Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt, maybe they do lose. Yep. So the Pac-12, I think college football in general is just kind of open, but the Pac-12 was the first one that caught my eye. But there's still a lot of drama to come this season in CFB, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, you guys will have to make sure to kind of tune into our big takes, because PG a couple weeks back said Texas isn't back, and then what happened this week? Texas fell. He predicted it. He said, "Don't get your hopes up, guys, because it's not the same team. They're not back."
OU and Texas both. I think they tend to look forward to that Red River Shootout game so much that sometimes these little games in between kind of fall in the cracks. I wonder if that happened to both teams this weekend, but we'll have to see that play out for the rest of the season before you declare that. But just want to give a big shout out to everyone who listens to the show. Be sure to share it. If you see the tweet, hit retweet or whatever, or just be sure to subscribe, like, and all that stuff helps a ton. Me and Beast both appreciate you guys a lot. And let's keep having fun. We'll catch you guys again Friday morning for our big weekend preview, and we'll have our picks and all that good stuff in there. Peace.
Yeah. Stay tuned, guys.